All right, it is Tuesday night. Usually, when Paid for Play comes live, we got SEC conference preview for you up and about tonight. We got the tourney that just kicks off, and it's tomorrow, I believe, correct?
Yeah, tomorrow night.
Yes, it tips off Wednesday night. So we're coming at you live on Tuesday. So if you're catching us any point Wednesday during the day, you still got time to lock in your best bets for future long. Maybe we can give you an underdog to target in the first round or in one of the next upcoming matchups. Long shots to take and who's going to be cutting down the net, all from Paid for Play. If you've been tapping into the prior conference previews, you already know what's coming at you. If it's your first time, welcome in. We'll break down not every single team. Some might get ignored. That's just because we think they have no shot. So they'll get talked about at who we're going to cross off right away. We've been bringing in different guests this whole week who follow the conference to a T. So you already know Sam Murphy from Paid for Play. So we got him in because you saw Goose and Sosa, and we brought D-Rock as well. Probably tired of seeing those guys. So we got Sam, some LSU blood in here who... No, they're a lock for the tourney. I can't even make you sweat that a little bit, but let's see if they can get some extra silverware. But Sam, how you doing tonight?
It's SEC tournament week. Last year was probably the closest that LSU has come in my lifetime. I think the only time they've won it was 1980, I want to say. They're a one-time winner. So usually this week ends in some kind of it usually ends disappointingly. So have a little bit of hope. Hopefully the team gets right heading into the tournament, but I'm feeling good.
Spin and Steven talked to you earlier in Spaces. Still doing well after sweating your bets?
Yep, doing good.
Yes, sir. It's a pretty solid day so far. If I could watch the South Dakota State game, if this Bryant game ever ends, then maybe I'll go 3-0. Maybe this Bryant game will end at 1 a.m. and I'll never see what happens in the South Dakota State game. We don't know.
Well, the game is over. The game itself is over. It's the after fights that are the big question now. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
Yes, sir. And you already know the show is powered and sponsored by Daily Bread Media. You can check them out at Twitter, best spot to be. We're also live on Twitter at Paid for Play. So that's our college sports hub. All you need to know there. And we're live on YouTube as well, Daily Bread Media. Make sure to be giving us a like, retweet, subscribe, wherever the hell you're on there, on which outlet. Throw us that like button. And it's a little warm-up brackets here. It's like me and Spin's like 7th or 8th at this point. It's Sam's first, but next week we'll have the free bracket from Daily Bread Media where you can join, win cash. So we'll be dropping that from the Paid for Play and Daily Bread Media channel. All right, let's get into it. We can't dance around anymore. SEC preview time. You got some teams that are further off odds. This isn't one of the gauntlets like we see with the other conference tournaments because your top 4 teams, they get rewarded with a win and you're in the semis. So they got to do a little bit of work, and your teams that are all the way on the outside, I don't believe anyone, since they've expanded the conference, it's going to get even bigger next year, that any team from 12 up has won the conference tournament. So that's where, when we get to who we can cross out, it might be coming from that action. Auburn's got the number 1 seed locked up. Everyone's favorite seed, Tennessee, got the 2. Kentucky at the 3. Arkansas at the 4. All those teams, in my opinion, are solid in the tournament. You can also throw in LSU and Alabama, in my opinion, as well. We can talk about them if they might have some more work to do. So who's going to be playing each other off the path? We got a lot of different segments to get through in a packed SEC. And then who needs to run the table like Florida and Texas A&M to get there, just from odds perspective, because we'll be giving out some best bets and teams to look at. You got Kentucky at plus 200, Auburn 270, Tennessee 370, Arkansas 700, And then, Sam, I know you have an LSU future somewhere out there at 11,100 and Bama all the way at 1,600. I think it's almost open for all it could be. Auburn was trying to make it seem like this wasn't going to be a run for anyone's money, but in the one game knockout and with how poor they've looked, not on their home court, the neutral side could really bring this up to everyone's level. That's why I think you see the plus 200. So is there anything from this conference overall that we've seen throughout the season that we want to talk about before we get into the odds and who we're crossing off?
Not too much.
mean, yeah,
Go ahead, Steven.
there's not a ton. The only thing I'd maybe talk about is I think Tennessee's still a little overvalued at just plus 370, just because like they're not actually playing these games in Knoxville. It's not true home games for Tennessee anymore. They're not playing true home games. They're not the same team. I think the next three teams below them all have just as good, if not a better chance to win this tournament, all with better value. So I think just Tennessee not playing really at home, I think plus 370 is not good enough odds for me to want to take them.
Yeah, really from my perspective, and I mean, I'll talk a little bit more about it in a bit with different individual teams, but just historically, this has been like the Kentucky Memorial Tournament. Historically, since it started, Kentucky's won this tournament 31 times. Every other SEC combined team combined 29. So odds on favorite, even being at the 3.
I'll agree with.
Go ahead, Sam.
I'll agree with what Steven said. Like even taking the tournament out of Nashville, where it feels like for the last 5 years, I want to say, I don't know. I mean, that's just where it feels like every year. That probably hurts Tennessee a little bit more, not being able to have like even a semi-home environment. I don't trust Rick Barnes in March. I don't know why anyone would. So I don't think 370 is enough to put them as your dog in the SEC tournament.
In the SEC, I mean, you can say every team relies on home court advantage, and then we'll get into who we're crossing off. There's 3 teams, and you can even push it to 4 that have relied on it much higher than other conference previews that we've done so far. We've already mentioned Auburn in the home rank, which is say how well they perform at home compared to what they're expected to on the road. They're 28th, so they really rely on it. You have Miss State, who, if you've been in the spaces, you already know they are easy to read like a book. They're 7th. They're one of the top teams that rely on the home court energy. LSU surprisingly ranks all the way at 64, and then Tennessee gets you at 93. So you got 4 squads that rank pretty high in the top 100 for needing that home court energy, but injuries in this, that, and the other plays into it there. But who are we crossing off from this right away? Is there any team other than Georgia, because Crean is gone? I can kind of make a case for Vanderbilt, so I can't cross them off right away, even though I'm not sold on them. When we get into easiest pass, they might have one of the easier ones, and then I'll never bet on Kermit or Kozo in a tournament time. So those 2 teams are off. So it would really just be Georgia, Ole Miss, and Missouri for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Georgia for sure, but actually, Ole Miss was almost right there along with them as one of the first teams that I cross off. Just not enough offense here, especially not enough offensive firepower and enough consistency on offense to win this many games in this many days against what would eventually amount to the cream of the crop in the conference. And then for me, I come close to crossing off South Carolina, but I think that there still might be some value in their number. But again, I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Sam, who are you crossing off? Who would you not even put a free bet on?
I think the 3 teams you mentioned, I mean, Vanderbilt has the ability to get hot and beat in Alabama if they're not hitting shots. So I don't think I could just fully cross them off. I don't know if A&M, I know Auburn's away from home and they're not they're not the same team when they're not at home, but I don't know that Florida or A&M are going to be able to get past them. So, I mean, one of them have to win the game, but I mean, I'd immediately cross them off just because I don't see either of them getting past Auburn.
Steven, let's hear it. Because you always like to cross off a higher seed or two here.
Yeah, I would cross off. I'd have to say the bottom 5. Like Vandy, I wanted to make a case for, but when you're so reliant on Scottie Pippen Jr., somebody's gonna find a way to shut that down, and their secondary pieces aren't going to be enough. And then South Carolina is they're too streaky of a team for me. They're like when they go on a hot streak, I can see them going on a hot streak for like 2 games. I don't see them getting 4 straight very good performances in a row to come out and win the tournament. Like, I guess I could maybe make a slight case for Florida if I had to. So that's why I'd only cut out the bottom 5.
So we got some matchups already set in stone here. Quick hit on Missouri, Ole Miss. Anyone have a winner off the top of their head that they're confident with here in the first game?
Missouri.
I was going to say, someone's got to answer one of the questions there. And then for the Vandy Georgia game, that line's already at -9. Some shops have it up to -10 for Vanderbilt Georgia. I was looking to lay Vandy if you could get it under -6, but since you have to pay for a double-digit win, you never know because Georgia's defense is that porous, but sometimes their offense is just like, we don't give a hell. We're going to put up 78 just for fun and hang in a game we have no business and stay within that double digit. But I think they could sell on them, but we've seen Louisville not sell on a coach. So, Spin, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say I'm with Sam here, and in the Ole Miss Missouri game, it's Missouri for me, and yeah, that's too big of a spread in a conference tournament.
Wednesday night at the SEC tournament.
I hate large spreads in conference tournaments.
Wednesday night is just an absolute degenerate bowl. There is absolutely nothing good going on in any like the SEC has improved over the last few years for sure at the top, but the bottom is as bad as any of the Power 5 conferences. It is just ugly watching, and the only reason you're watching it is if you're drunk in the stadium or you have some bets going. So
hopefully it's a better turnout than it was in the Barclays Center for the ACC today, or because they moved it back to not the normal conference and you get the usual turnout. That's like the one thing that they do by moving the conference tournament is you're messing with the fans. And this one's in Florida, correct?
Yeah, it's down in Tampa this year.
Ooh, little Gator. That means I have to pick the Gators in the 9-8, which is the next game that we're going to go to against Texas A&M there. I mean, if Mike White really wants to blow it in front of the home fans and try to get the radio and them moron to get him out of here because I can't say he's been a complete disappointment, but I think some people would agree with me on that aspect here. And especially with this team, with how they run, and it feel like they've had Castleton and Appleby there for so long at this point, and it still hasn't worked. It still hasn't gotten them to a conference final or a championship yet at this point. They're firmly outside the bubble, so I think they would have to get a win against Auburn and then look tough against Arkansas or LSU, but I don't even know if that's enough to potentially play them into the tournament here at this aspect. From their non-con schedule, the win against Ohio State could mature and look a little bit better to help them in the long run. But other than that, in conference play, they took losses to Oklahoma and Maryland, which both have aged poorly. Within conference play, they have their one win against Auburn. Past that, they don't really have that many reputable wins to the point they're 2-9 in the quad 1 this season. They look great if you look at everything other than that. 5-2 in the quad 2, 6-0 quad 3, and then 7-1. So they do have that one quad 4 loss against Texas Southern real back early in the season. But it's those wins and the record being quad 2-9 in the quad 1, which is have them on the outside of the bubble once again under Mike White. first time since he's got there. So I guess once again is a tough way to say it, but since his run has been there, he's made the tournament every season. So regression year. Anyone have thoughts on Florida or think Texas A&M can upset them?
I mean, I could see a road where Texas A&M does win this game. They're a team where I do like their defense. For the most part, their offense is so hit or miss. Like they'll have stretches like they had early in the season against Wisconsin, where they were up by like 20 points in the first half. Like they can look that good, and then they also have stretches where they look like they've never seen a true offensive set in their life, and they'll just go 5 minutes without doing anything positive. I guess I'd have to give the slight edge to Florida because of location, but a little bit of a sleepy game at like noon on a Thursday. Anything can happen. I could see Texas
I'm waiting for
A&M.
you to say they're the hot team, man. They're hot again. They're 15-2.
Hey.
They went to 16-11 real quick after being 15-2, and now they're 20-11. They've won 5 of their past 6. They're on the right foot. One of those wins was against Florida, 56-55. And if you watch that game, I feel bad for you. But
I could see it with A&M's coach. So I could see it with A&M's coach is he's going to have A&M ready for that game. I don't know if Mike White's that kind of motivator to get Florida up for a noon game on a Thursday.
Spin.
Yeah. I was saying, and the thing with A&M is they were close. They were towards the bottom. In fact, for a while they were trending towards last in all things shooting in EFG and 3-point percentage. But to your point, Rex, it's been a resurgence for them in more ways than one over their last 3 games. So for the season, they're shooting under 50% EFG. They're almost 60% arc. So if you're a believer that end of season runs or end of season hot streaks, so to speak, will carry on into the conference tournament, then you almost have to lean A&M here. But if you match the teams up how they play or how they have played under normal circumstances, it would be a Florida team. It would be a Florida spot for me. My official play here would be on Florida, but it's probably not something I'm going to have any of my own money behind.
Yeah, and spin the last thing where they've improved that offensive efficiency. I guess you would kind of hope so when you're just looking at conference-only stats. Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia are the bottom 3 in defensive efficiency, adjusted defensive efficiency. So it's kind of just where they got the offense right. Sometimes you just need those beat-up games to get the shot or to see a few fall and get it rolling. Florida, I'm still going to be rocking with them. Sam, what do you think in this one?
I don't know how much of a home crowd there's going to be. I mean, Florida just feels like they're disappointed this year. It, like you said, it's a regression year. Mike White's allowed to have one of these. He's built up enough trust and built up the program and kept it kind of at a steady level over the last few years. But it just seems like they haven't been right since they lost Keontae last year. Like that just set them back so much as a program, and I don't think they've recovered from it. So maybe it's just one of those things where they just need to like look to next year. I mean, I'll ride with the hot team A&M. Even though it's in Tampa, I don't know how much of a home crowd there's going to be.
Ooh, I like it. I mean, we'll move on. I don't want to make it a sole Mike White pod for the SEC here, but it's just kind of like I don't want to compare him to the Jamie Dixon just because at Pittsburgh, because I seem like there could be an overreaction because in his second season, he took him to the Elite 8 as the 4th seed. All the other times, the other 3 times they made it, he was the 6, the 10, and the 7, and he got bounced in the round of 32. I don't think it's an overreaction yet, but if it doesn't get better and soon, or at least signs of improvement back into the tourney next year, it could be bad, especially with how many players are expected to lose. He's going to need a strong recruiting class. One last matchup we'll talk about before we go to easiest paths and who we got cutting down the nets and all that other further matchup of the good quality action. We're 20 minutes in. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Do you guys actually want to talk South Carolina, Miss State, or does it not really matter because they're going to lose to Tennessee regardless?
Only thing I want to talk about with South Carolina is it will never not be weird seeing a bald Frank Martin on the sidelines.
Steven, I know you follow this Miss State team and you have a better read on them than most people so far this season. Does neutral offset their terrible away from home aspect just because not the other team's home?
I don't think so. I don't think it offsets it enough. Miss State just only has the guys when they're playing at home, and anywhere else, anybody who might have been good looks average when the game's not being played at Mississippi State. So I'd probably lean South Carolina, but it's really just who wants to walk in and get beat by Tennessee in the next round. So does it really matter?
I mean, Rick Barnes' side has a part to go down, and we've been talking about how bad they're away from home. That's how we opened the show. I think on a neutral, not any of these teams have a part to go against it to pull it, but in this matchup here, I guess I'm going to have to rock with Miss State just because they got them in the regular season matchup. Rather convincingly 2 by 14 points. So that's kind of just where, from what we've seen on the film, it is at home. But it's just that South Carolina offense is just so non-existent at some points because neither of these teams can shoot from deep. And yes, South Carolina can own the paint on defense, but I think Miss State's got to get it going with Tolu Smith. I mean, I know he's been out. I don't think he's going to come back, but that's been the biggest issue and why Miss State has struggled is once Tolu has been inconsistent. Maybe he'll play again. Who the hell knows? Because he's dropped 20 in his past 4.
And Stephen, to your point, Mississippi State ranked 357th away from home this year. And for those of you that are watching for the first time, there are 358 teams in college basketball. So they're not quite last, but they're really close.
All right. Sam, does LSU have the easiest or the hardest path, or is it just right in the middle?
I think they have one of the easier paths. I think outside of, Kentucky probably has the easiest path of anybody. But I have to say, anybody outside of Kentucky, you want to be on the top side of the bracket. This is Kentucky's tournament. Like, it's going to be mostly Kentucky fans in the stands. Like, no matter where the SC tournament is, it feels like it's Lexington South. So, it's just going to be such a hard thing to overcome playing on their side of the bracket. So, if LSU has to make a path, I'd take the team that they lost twice to by a total of 2 points. And they had Auburn on the ropes for a while and just couldn't close out the game. It was their first true road game, and Auburn got them at a good time. So I don't hate our chances, but the LSU's never really done anything in the SEC tournament outside of last year.
Spin, who has the easiest path?
For the easiest path here, I'm probably going to go to the top half of the bracket because I think that as much as I dislike Rick Barnes as well, I think that when you get such a defensive-minded team in a conference tournament environment like this that can play ugly, can play rock fights, and then you have Kentucky on the other side, and it's kind of an ugly road, and it's kind of a brutal road too. So whoever gets past. Let's just assume Vanderbilt wins. Vanderbilt and Alabama have both in spots given Kentucky problems and have given Tennessee problems. So for me, the bottom half of the bracket seems kind of like a bunch of rock fights. But then to Sam's point, you have on their half of the bracket, I see a lot more peril than I do on the top half of the bracket. So, I mean, the easy answer would be to say Auburn, but that's the number 1 seed. So I'll defer from that. But I'll say LSU or Arkansas, because I can see either one of them on a neutral floor hanging with and even knocking off Auburn. So, and getting to that championship game. So I will say somewhere in the top half of the bracket, probably whoever wins the 4-5 game, because there's not a chance in hell that LSU is losing to Ole Miss or Missouri.
They already lost to Ole Miss once, so let's not say that.
Okay, I'm confident that they will beat.
No, I think. I was just gonna say I think Kentucky has the easiest path because they're probably gonna get Alabama games not at Alabama, so I like Kentucky, and then probable Kentucky Tennessee semifinal. It's the rubber match. They each won once at home. I think on a neutral floor, Kentucky's pretty clearly still the better team, so I think they have the easiest path to the final. But I wouldn't count out either LSU or Arkansas just because of the way Auburn's been on a relative kind of like slide the last couple of weeks of the regular season. Like they haven't been playing their best basketball. So for two teams that are starting to play better in Arkansas and LSU, I think they got the better top 2 seed to draw for their potential semifinal match.
I don't think any team relatively has an easy path here, in my opinion. I've been trying to go through it and make an argument with it. I guess it has to be Kentucky, but just I don't like continuing saying Jekyll will Hyde for Alabama, but just their volatility of they can be the toughest or the easiest team to play on any given night. So that's where I kind of almost have to go with Tennessee to a point. Because I think the Arkansas Auburn matchup is going to be much tougher than the Tennessee Kentucky one. Sam, you lost to him both times so far. I can't see him pull. You can't. I'm not seeing the third time's a charm here.
I understand. I mean, Arkansas stole both games from LSU. They lost by 1 point at home, or they won by 1 at LSU. They won by 1 at Arkansas. It's so infuriating because there was a clear travel before the foul. I'm not getting into it. So I'll just digress. I won't argue too much with Arkansas beating LSU. I mean, I'm going to say LSU wins, but it's just a very biased homer pick. So,
all right, who has a long shot? Because Sam, you said you have LSU plus 1,100. Is there any more reason why you want to get into it and break the squad down more for why you have them plus 1,100?
I think in a 3-game, they got to win, I guess, 4 games. So yeah, if it's an extremely long shot to think that LSU's offense is going to show up for 4 consecutive games. I think the defense is good enough, and it showed time and time again that it will keep you in games, but they cannot have the instances where they get down 12-20 in the first half and have to come out and play an absolutely lights out, perfect second half in order to try and pull back within reach and come away with a win. That's been the biggest downfall this year. And I like the defense. The defense is championship or SEC championship level. So if you're going to ride that Darius Days, you need some Darius Days, Xavier Pinson, and Tari Eason to just stay out of foul trouble. Like if the team can stay on the floor and not be fouled out like Tari Eason likes to do with 12 minutes to go in the second half, then I mean, they can beat anybody in the conference. I think they've showed that.
Steven?
Yeah, I'd have to go the same way. I'd have to go with LSU. I don't know. I haven't seen enough consistency with the 3 ball from Arkansas for me to trust them in another matchup against Auburn. And then with Alabama, I can barely trust Alabama to win 2 games that they should win easily. there's no way I'm going to trust them to win 4 games against good teams back to back. Like they're just not consistent enough for that. And then everybody else is, I don't really consider any of them long shots at plus 400 or less. So I think LSU has the best defense out of those 3. And I think that team has the potential to have the best all-around offense. Not the best three-point shooting offense. I think that would still go to Alabama. Maybe not the best interior scorer. I feel like that goes to Jalen Williams for Arkansas. But just as an all-around offensive team, I think that would probably go to LSU. And then I think they have the best defense out of those 3. So if I had to put my money on something at plus 1,000 or better, my money be going with LSU.
I'd also
Spin,
like to
what
add
you got?
that
Oh, go ahead, Sam.
I'll add that douchebag Pat Forty gave them quite the reason to rally together as a team earlier today. So thank you, Pat Forty. You're a fuck.
So when I was breaking this down in preparation for the show, my initial numbers and everything, all for a long shot, all kept leading back to LSU. But I knew Sam was going to be on the show, so I knew I had to go a different way. So I tried to turn on hard mode and said I'm going to do it without LSU in the turn. Like, let's just say LSU was not able to participate, right? So
Oklahoma State style might happen.
Yeah.
Another
that's
violation just came out against it. Sam's shaking in
No,
his
no,
boots
no.
over there.
Let's not do that. So
It's not a new
See, got him.
It's not a new violation. It's the same shit from 2017 that we've been over time and time again that has produced nothing of substance or any allegations from the NCAA before. But now all of a sudden there's this mystery violation right before March. Coincidence? Pat Forty writes the same fucking article every year he's done for the last 5 years. I'm done.
No, that's all right. So, I'm just going to go to the other side of the bracket in the fourth. I've done it earlier. There's not enough value on Tennessee at plus 370. I am not a big fan of taking a plus 200 or plus 270 with Kentucky and Auburn in any conference tournament future, especially a power conference. So if you're crossing off everybody from Mississippi State on down, that's left with 3 teams: Arkansas, LSU, Alabama. Go again. LSU doesn't exist in this world, so it's Arkansas or Bama, and I will go with the team that I think has the easier path with Arkansas, plus 700. This is something that I would probably sprinkle on. This is not something I'm rushing to the window. In fact, to be totally honest with you, I'm not really rushing to the window with any future for this team, but for any futures bet on this team. But me, I think that if you are going to look at that, I think that your sweet spot lies with Arkansas at plus 700, LSU at plus 1100, Bama at plus 1600. Those 3 and those 3 only for me. Rex mute. Rex mute.
Oh, we got Rex on mute one time. Let's go. Wasn't me.
Damn, it only happens on this. I'll take my stuff on paid for play. I was about to say, from a long shot, from my perspective here, I'm just gonna I would have to rock with Arkansas, but I just think Tony is the biggest question mark there. We saw them have the second comeback, but maybe it was just a more rest spot at Tennessee. It was just a strange sit out right before a tip that made no sense, where they still had a chance to win outright. Was Auburn going to lose that game? Probably not. But still, to end the season on an L, even though you did make a good comeback there at plus 700 and a toss-up against Auburn, that's really what you just have to get past when you're rocking that, and a sweat fest against LSU. But I'm not putting anything on the plus 700. So if you forced me, I'd take it there. But I don't think – I think you can make a reasonable case for anybody. Semifinals, top half. Steven, who do you have?
Top half of the semifinals, I got Auburn and I got LSU.
Sam, who do you got?
And
Auburn, LSU.
Spin.
Ditto.
All right. Damn. All right. We'll go Florida, Arkansas.
Ooh.
We didn't get the sweep. That's good.
No, we can't have the jinx sweep. It's never a good thing when the whole – I had Auburn, Arkansas. I'll just go a little bit different here. And sure, I went off on the Mike White part earlier. I mean, they called them once on – sure, it was on their home court. But they looked a little too clean for my opinion, where Auburn might be a little bit more nervous than expected in that one. And Florida's playing with house money at that point. Bottom half, I have Tennessee, Kentucky, as gross as it sounds. Anyone differentiate from that? That's a tough one to differentiate from.
It's too chalky on the bottom.
All right, so my finals, I have Arkansas, Kentucky, and I'll go with Arkansas to win it outright. Who wants to go theirs next? Spin?
LSU, Kentucky. No, it's fine.
All right, I've already given out my underdog conferences where I haven't gone chalk, and it's been very poor to me all year. So I will just go chalk here. I'll just take Auburn, Kentucky.
All right, I'm feeling great now. Spin, what's yours?
LSU, Kentucky, and I can't argue with 31 SEC tournament championships. I wish that there was a way that I could say that this won't be the Kentucky Memorial Tournament, but I can't this year. I'm not going to put any money on it because, again, it's got to be the Cats.
Sam, let's hear it.
I'll go LSU, Kentucky. I mean, that's the homer pick, but I mean, you lose to Arkansas twice by 2 points total in the two games you play. You can beat them on a neutral court. Auburn, you were down, I believe it was 19-1 over the first 10 minutes of the first half at Auburn, and you still were within a couple points without one of your starters on their home court, and then it just got away from you in the last 2-3 minutes. I don't think it's impossible to say beating Auburn away from home is a long shot. So Kentucky, I have a Kentucky future also. I mean, Spin said it himself. They've won it more than the rest of the conference combined. It's hard to, if you give me plus odds on something like that, my dumbass is going to take it. Like I'm going to bite the chalk. Like it is what it is. I have my LSU future too. Believe in Will Wade. I will die for that man. I will stand on the battlefield with him any day of the week. He had him playing right last year, and I didn't think they would make the finals last year. They have the defense on this year's team to carry them to a championship level, and I think that's what you have to ride and hope on.
All right. Kentucky was really just the only team that we didn't break down in depth of all the top sides that we had here. So just to give them their due and to make Sam sweat his future a little bit, they're the clean team against quad 2, quad 3, and quad 4 because they're combined 17-0 in that aspect. 8-6 against quad 1. The quad 1A, they're 3-5 when you break down that 8-6 a little bit more. And when I went through their schedule, it's not hard to say what's their best win because they had the neutral at UNC where they routed them, makeup game, sure. They won at Kansas, so I guess that's their best win. But past that, it's like a home win against Tennessee or LSU is their next best win on the schedule here. So that's just where SEC, I don't want to say was down. The top 5 and 6 were upper echelon because they're making March without a question. It's just the bottom fell out extremely quick in the SEC. And with their non-con, they lost to Duke, they lost to Notre Dame and UNC and Canton. They split with UNC and Kansas where they're 2 wins. So, and they're tough non-con games. They went 2-2. So that's just where we've seen Cal's teams go dry. This is the first team that he's had that can shoot this three as well as it can, but it's still never really translated. It's still having those shooters shooting at the 75th percent clip because they've broken 10 threes in 3 conference games this whole season. So it's not even like they're the juggernaut from out there. They rely completely, I won't say completely on Chiway, but when you have that neutralizer on both sides of the court where it can just get you 23 boards regardless and he's not in foul trouble, that's kind of just where it's hard to go against Kentucky in that aspect. Because he's one thing that even if all's going to shit with your team, if you know you can just clean the boards, it's the biggest help to get you guys out of that funk. And then can Grady stay this hot? That's the second question with Kentucky. Ty, when he's playing, the offense has been there, but it's Grady. He's been their key piece. It's been good too, but it's been Grady.
But, I mean, you have to also account for, like, some of their quad 1 losses also came with Wheeler and Ty off the floor. So I think with them fully healthy, they're one of the best teams in the country. They had Auburn on the ropes, then they lost Wheeler and Ty. They had LSU. They had LSU on the ropes in the second half. They lost Wheeler in the first half, but then they lost Washington in the second half. Like, most of their losses against quad 1 came at whenever their 2 point guards were off the floor, which I won't hold too much against them. I mean, obviously, there's some of those where you need to win and all that, but it's college basketball. Weird shit's going to happen all the time.
Yeah, I guess they don't have any bad losses, which you can say with about
and if there's
all the other teams. Go ahead, Spin.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, if there's any knock on this Kentucky team metrically is that defensively they don't force a ton of turnovers. However, they clean the glass so well that they normally don't even need to. And, on offense, I think injuries had a little bit to do with this too. And also part of it is because they run such efficient offense. They don't get to the free throw line that much, but really, like, I'm nitpicking here. Normally when I'm kind of trying to poke holes in a team, I'll be like, they're 275th in this. But with Kentucky, I'm like, they're 9th in the SEC in free throw rate. And I mean, they only make free throws at a 73% clip. Could that hurt them deep into March Madness? Yeah, probably. Yeah, it might has the potential to. But let's just be real here. I mean, this is just one of the most complete teams in this whole tournament. Actually, one of the most complete teams in the whole country. And so anything that I would come up with,
the free throws is a legit thing. I think
it is.
Might be overlooking that a little too much with this squad because when you look at it, Chiway has 144 attempts. Your next most is 83, and then it falls off into the 50s afterwards. Crunch time could get a little sketchy for them, it seems like, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, so the only real knock that I would have is their ability to get to the line. They're 276th in free throw rate. That's not free throws attempted. That's free throw rate. So they rely a lot more on making shots from the field than they do getting to the line. Free throw percentage, 136th overall, so just a little bit below the top half. That's probably not going to hurt you too much in like a conference tournament or in the first couple rounds in the NCAA. That's why I said if it's going to kill them or if it's going back to bite them, it's probably going to be like Sweet 16, Elite 8 time or beyond.
What's really going to kill them, in my opinion, like Oscar Tshiebwe twice this year has allowed Xavier Wheeler to just be absolutely laid out on screens. And, I mean, that's something that you can't lose your starting point guard in a run whenever you're preparing to make a run like this. I mean, if anyone tries to set a screen, like a backcourt screen, trying to free up pressure in the backcourt, he's got to be able to call those out better. It's happened twice. It should have only happened once, if 0 times at all.
And they're all upperclassmen, other than Ty.
Mm-hmm.
Any other team that we want to talk about before we wrap it up here? I just felt like we had to break down Kentucky a little bit just because if we liked them that much, I don't think we gave them their credit when it's due. I wasn't trying to knock on them because they're my favorite team in the SEC and Cal is my guy. I just think
You have
Just
the
think he's
Dunking
gonna
Tigers.
blow it.
Yeah.
that's my football team.
Okay, that's fair.
Anything else from this conference overall? I'm trying to see who did we talk about the least.
Georgia.
It might have been off. Well, no. Which real team did we talk about the least?
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, do we want to just kind of do a little bit of mini Kentucky breakdown on Auburn? Because I feel like we all put them in the semis or in the finals, but I'm not sure that. I mean, really, the only thing that I think we really talked about was that they can struggle away from home.
They have Jabari Smith, who is a game changer. That's really their piece, and it's going to be kind of team scheme enough to shut him down while controlling Kessler, so you're going to need the height. The guards, I think that's just where Pearl, we've seen him not in the crunch time. I still just can't trust Pearl. Even though Cal's not a better coach to trust in the crunch time there, it's just that Pearl's either going to win him this tournament or lose him the game. The talent here is on the squad. He has no excuses at this point when Jabari, in my opinion, should be the number one pick. So that's where if he doesn't get through this tournament with the title, it's a little bit more in him and a little bit more credit to Cal than anything else.
They get way too reliant on Jabari when I can understand. I could see it happening. Like if I was on a team like that with a player like Jabari, like you just kind of get way too reliant on him to make everything and put up all your offense, especially when they start getting stagnant on the road. At least over the last few games that I've seen where they've struggled a little bit, I think they put the ball in his stand. His usage is way too high.
Yeah. Do we think that Auburn can shoot the three well enough here?
No.
I don't think so either. It's been there in a number of
It's
games.
just volume.
Lost,
It's the only reason why they're going in.
Yeah. If you shoot enough of them, one of them is bound to go in. Is that the deal?
Well, that's kind of where when you compare their and Kentucky splits, I mean, when you just like tear it up, if Kentucky were to take that many more attempts per game, their makes per game would look a little bit better, but their percentage is going to look worse like here. It's just that it's surprising with how much of an inside presence that they have. If you go back and look at their past few games, they used to break 22-point field goals, no sweat. It just seems like the past 5 or 6 teams that schemed them out of it kept them under that threshold, and that's where their losses have came.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nope. Other than
right.
that was it for me.
All right. Well, that's Paid for Play SEC Conference Tournament Preview brought to you by Sam, Steven, Spin, and myself. You can catch us live on Spaces almost every single day. Daily Bread also live. You can flip back and watch the Big Ten Conference Preview. If you need more action, since that tips off tomorrow, we brought in Goose and D-Rock for that one. I think we have one conference tournament preview left for tomorrow on our docket. But then past that, it's just going to be best bets all day, every day. You already get that on the Twitter Spaces, so follow us on Twitter to get your pregame lunch break spaces in. Until tomorrow, give us a like, give us a retweet, and we'll catch you all later.